What's up, YouTube? What's up, YouTube? It's your boy back with another one. People, in today's video, we want to talk about the ungrateful foreigners who come to South Africa, make a name in South Africa, make a fortune in South Africa, and go back and call out and represent their home nations. What do you think about that? Let me know in the topic in the comment section below. Hi, people. As the title of the video suggests, right? Ungrateful foreigners. Now, how would you feel? How do you, how do you, how do you, how do, I'm failing to even think of how to start this video, right? I'm at a loss for words, actually. I'm at a loss for words, right? Check this out. So, I came across this video where this guy was talking about people born in other countries who move to South Africa, make a living, earn a living, become successful, and then go and represent their own countries without acknowledging South Africa. Then he also gave an example of Chidima, right? Born in South Africa, but goes and says, no, she's Nigerian and she's fully Nigerian and denounces South Africa. And okay, in Chidima's case, man, okay, that one is a bit, that one is, it's not even tricky at all, bro, because to be honest, that girl is South African. That girl sounds, looks, talks, acts, everything South African. You know what I mean? So let's just talk about, let's just say, for example, Elon Musk, for example, right? That's one good example of an ungrateful foreigner, right? Elon Musk, as we all know, is a South African. As much as he wants to claim that he's Canadian and now he's fully American and he's not even South African, yeah, yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this, guys. So let's start with people who are born outside of South Africa, who then move to South Africa for a better life, make it out here, create um, a level of wealth. Sometimes even create a name for themselves in the entertainment space or in the art space or whatever space. It can be industry, can be business, whatever space. Create a name for themselves, and then they go on to represent the countries of their birth without acknowledging the role that South Africa afforded them. Right. So let's start there. What do we think about such people, or what do I think about such people, right? For me, I think that if you, as a foreigner, come to South Africa, you make a living in South Africa, you change your life, you're right. You start a business, or you get into the arts and the field and the arts and the creative space, and you make it big and you become a household name locally. Let's start locally before even let's say you make it internationally, right? And you don't mention South Africa. Now, guys, that's a punch in the face of South Africa. Because honestly speaking, you have to give credit to the place that put you on the map, right? You have to guarantee that you acknowledge the place that actually puts you on the map. For example, there's Uncle Waffles, right? Uncle Waffles, to most people, to a lot of people, Uncle Waffles is a female DJ making it big in the world. She's now a global superstar. And to most people, Uncle Waffles is a South African because she made her name in South Africa. Her fan base was built on the backs of South Africans. And we love her for that. But when Uncle Waffles goes out, let's just say, and doesn't acknowledge South Africa or South Africans for putting on the map, and instead shouts out and represents her country, which is Swaziland, that I wouldn't say didn't have an impact, but obviously South Africa, being a bigger country with a bigger population, having her as giving her a bigger fan base, obviously this is where she made her bones. This is where she made a name for herself in South Africa. Let's be fair. Let's be honest. Those that know what I'm talking about. But if someone like Uncle Waffles has to go out into the world, does not represent South Africa, or at least acknowledge the role that South Africa has played in her career, and just goes out and represents and shouts out Swaziland. That, my friend, is an example of a uh, you know that's an example of an ungrateful foreigner. Now I'm using Uncle Waffles as an example, right? So I don't know if she also falls in that camp of not representing South Africa, because as far as I know, she fully embraces the South African culture, right? And she is, to be honest, let's be honest, she is a good ambassador for South Africa, even though she's from Swaziland, which we acknowledge, which we do, right? Then we look at people like the Beast, rugby player, right? Born in Zimbabwe, does what he does best, you know what I mean? And he doesn't hide it. He doesn't hide the fact that he's from Zimbabwe, born in Zimbabwe, represented Zimbabwe at some junior level, I think in rugby, if I'm not mistaken, and then came over to South Africa and then applied, and then he played for the senior Springboks in South Africa. He doesn't hide it. And he's a good ambassador for South African rugby as well, because he knows this is where he made his name and his fortune, right? People, the Beast, in my view, is a good example of a grateful, of a wonderful, of an exemplary persona of what it is to be a foreigner who acknowledges the place that gave him his start. Now, it may not be the start, but it may be the country that elevated him to a higher status. That's what I'm talking about. You get, my brother. You have to understand that, right? Understand. Word. So, people like, there's this UFC, well, actually, it's EFC boxer, right? Born in Zimbabwe. And I seen an interview where he acknowledged himself saying that he came from Zimbabwe, right? And he was a border jumper. He said first time he came as a border jumper because of that stuff, and he was like 16 years old, and he was working in the mines, and he even got dog bites all over his body because of what is happening to him as doing this illegal mining in Zimbabwe, right? People, you come to South Africa, you make your name, you live large, you create some sort of wealth in the EFC, and this is like the South Africa's version of UFC, right? UFC with MMA, right? And he made it big to a point where even Dwayne the Rock Johnson, I mean, you know that wrestler guy, The Rock, the guy that acts in Fast and Furious. I mean, that guy even got to. Well, this has been shocking, guys. This has been shocking. I mean, you get The Rock to actually buy you a house. That's how good and talented you are. And you don't acknowledge the role that South Africa played in your success. And then here you are shouting out Zimbabwe. Now, by all means, I'm not saying deny your country. Do not, please do not deny your place of your birth. Please do not deny your heritage. Please do not, people. There is a way that you show gratitude and appreciation for your host nation, right? There's a lady. a rapper. Her name is Nadia Nakai. Again, I don't know why I keep coming up with these are the people that just come to my head, right? Nadia Nakai, she's a South African born rapper, but she openly acknowledges that her heritage is in Zimbabwe. Now, dude, she proudly admits that whenever she's given an opportunity to introduce herself. That's a person who tells you that I'm a South African. I was born in Johannesburg, but my heritage is Zimbabwean. Grew up also in Zimbabwe, lived in Zimbabwe, and that. And she also grew up in Kenya, if I'm not mistaken, for some point. Lived in Kenya for a while, came back to Johannesburg, something like that, right? This is a person who acknowledges both sides of her family, both countries that played a role in shaping who she is today. That is a perfect example of an exemplary, grateful, humble, knowledgeable foreigner. I'm saying I'm giving an example of Nadia Nakai, and yet she's she's not exactly a foreigner, but because she was born in Johannesburg, but then I think like raised in Zimbabwe, something like that. But you know what I mean? I always say this, guys. Maybe quote me if tell me if I'm wrong, right? If you are born in a place, right, and you barely even can remember that place, but you were raised in another country, would and you have the mannerisms, the cultural practices, the norms, and everything of that adopted country, are you not more of that country than you are of your birth country? I mean, let's just take let's just take like Chidima for example, right? Born in South Africa, lived in South Africa, all she knows is South Africa, went to her father's country when she was, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old or something like that. Came back and even when she speaks, bruh, she speaks like a South African. She has a South African accent. Everything she does, she moves, she rolls it like a South African. There's nothing Nigerian about her besides maybe her physical appearance. But there is nothing, totally nothing Nigerian about that girl. So if she can acknowledge to say, I'm a South African and I'm a Nigerian and I'd like to pay homage to my Nigerian and so that would be an example of a grateful, humble, knowledgeable foreigner. But when we get some certain people that make their living, make their fortune in South Africa, and then when they get on the global stages, they just want to acknowledge their home countries that almost nearly never did anything for their careers, or they just gave them that foundational stud, and then they had to move elsewhere because they were not getting beyond that foundational phase. Now, would you not acknowledge your adopted country that then gives you that boost to get you to where you are? People, this thing of having ungrateful foreigners come to our shores, it's tiring. Really, it's tiring. You know, the Elon Musks of this world, the Doja Cats of this world, uh, well, the Peter Thiels of this world. If I'm not mistaken, they say Peter Thiel also is South African. I don't know, man. You know, another thing that I don't like, guys, is I don't know if you guys ever heard of this rap group from the 90s, right? They're called the Locks. Now, this group, they were signed to P. Diddy, Puff Daddy's record label, Bad Boys Entertainment, right? I didn't know that the guy, one of the rappers in that group, his name is Styles P. I didn't know that his mother was South African. That means this guy is half South African and half American. And guess what? He too doesn't even rep South Africa in any way, shape, or form. Have you ever heard Styles P? Those that know who Styles P is. Have you ever heard Styles P shouting out South Africa? Have you ever heard Styles P coming to South Africa and shouting out South Africa, representing South Africa, trying to incorporate his mother's culture into his music? No. That's an example of an ungrateful and foreigner. Anyone who is half South African or half whatever, and you don't acknowledge that half of you, you are the perfect example of an ungrateful foreigner, right? I mean, there's a soccer player by the name of Emmanuel Adebayo, right? If I'm not mistaken, he's half Togolese and half Nigerian. He could have chosen to play for Nigeria, which is obviously, in soccer terms, Nigeria is like the epitome of African football in terms of football history, right? Anyone, Togo was like Togo is like a no-name brand in footballing terms, whereas Nigeria is like a household brand, a household name. I mean, in soccer, in football terms, Nigeria is like the African giants. I mean, no one can deny they may be on a slump now, but no one can deny Nigeria's remarkable contribution to African football. So, all I'm simply saying is, yes, Emmanuel Adebayo. He played for, I think, Tottenham, Arsenal. Where else did he play for that I can think of? One of the two that I can think of, I think. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, Adebayo. No, I think he played for Man City as well, if I'm not mistaken. Adebayo. I think he played for Arsenal. Tottenham or City, one of the two. But I know he played for Arsenal. That's why I remember seeing him at Arsenal. Did for either Man City? So am I mistaken with Traore? Tottenham, Manuel Adebayo. One of those two. But I know he played for Arsenal, right? People, this guy clearly said his, I don't know if his father's Nigerian, his mother's Togolese, or his mother's Nigerian, his father's one of the two. But anyway, he had the option of playing for Nigeria or Togo, and he chose Togo. But he acknowledges his Nigerian roots or his Nigerian heritage too. That, my friend, is an example of a grateful, humble foreigner. Now, people, I'm telling you, we already have a foreigner problem in South Africa. We have an overcrowding of foreigners in our country. The least the foreigners can do is acknowledge South Africa as a host nation, as a heritage nation, as a country or a place that gave them either the start, gave them the foundational knowledge, or gave them the essence, the being of who they are becoming or who they've become. That's all I'm asking. Is there too much to ask for as a South African to all my foreigner or to all my foreign brothers and sisters? Those that either pass through here for a few short years, a few short months, and go on elsewhere, or those that are half South African and half anything else, is that too much to ask for just for you to acknowledge the role that South Africa played in your life? Even if you haven't lived here physically, the mere fact that one of your parents is South African, the mere fact that you get to you get to share in that heritage with that one parent of yours, is that not enough for you to acknowledge South Africa? People, it's sad, but for me, being a red blooded, hot blooded, sometimes cold blooded South African, it pains me to see that, yeah, man, people them come here, right? And everything they do, right? They want to bring their culture and the heritage to South Africa, and we learn from it. And that's so perfect. I mean, people, that's great. We get to learn, we get to exchange cultural ideologies. Dude, I'm all for it. If I can learn from a Somali, if I can learn from a Pakistani, from a Bangladesh, if I can learn from a Namibian, Botswana, from a Mozambican, from an Angolan, from an Egyptian, from a Nigerian, from a Ugandan, Cameroonian, Kenyan, Tanzanian, by all means, let's learn. But can we at least acknowledge that we are what we are or what we've become because of South Africa or which other adoptive nation that we've loved or passed through? That's what I'm saying. Is it wrong? Or am I wrong? Or am I asking for too much here? Let me know in the comment section below. Next, we get into the pros of being an ungrateful foreigner. Holla! People, the pros of being an ungrateful foreigner. Number one, you get to enjoy the benefits of a host nation without you being grateful, without you acknowledging the role of the host nation. Number two, you get the credit of doing everything on your own as if the host nation did nothing for you. Right? Number three, you don't even get to shout out the host nation in whatever endeavors you get to enjoy whilst living in the host nation. I mean, people really now. I mean, number four, you get to benefit off the system, of the infrastructure, of the economy of a host nation without you even acknowledging that. How do you like that? And number four, number five, you get to live like a normal citizen, doing things in your host nation that you can't even do in your own country. I mean, what could be better than that? What could be better than that? Some of you even come here without even documentation and you still get to enjoy life drinking alcohol every day. You can't even afford back home in your countries where you come from. But here you are. You know what I'm saying? And you don't acknowledge that, hey, this country has done good for me, has done me good. Let me repay back by shouting out this country and saying, whoa, guys, thank you. The least you can say thank you, but hey, even that, hey, it's too much for you. You know what I mean? Guys, no, man. Whoa, hard topic. Next, we get into the cons of being an ungrateful foreigner. Holla. People, the cons of being an ungrateful foreigner. Number one, when people start calling you out for not acknowledging what role a host nation done for you, and you have no clapback, none whatsoever. See the con. Number two, when in interviews, an interviewer brings up the fact that you were either raised in a host nation or you got your start in a host nation and you had forgot to put that in your come up story. Number three, an ungrateful foreigner will never give back to the host nation. And that's the saddest part. That's the real saddest part. And we don't have to give back in money. You can just give back in time. You don't have to give back in millions or billions. You can just give back in your time. Whatever you excel at, you can just set up training camps or training facility or whatever it is, just giving time back to the underprivileged kids. That would be a great thank you to your host nation. That's the least you can do. That's the least you can do. But hey, there's a lot of ungrateful foreigners. Trust me. Whatever they do, wherever they're from, whatever they're going to, wherever they're flying to, they've got South Africa in the rear view mirror and they're not looking back at all. Guys, let me know if I was on the money or I totally missed it with this one. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Please, guys, you know we family, right? Holla. All criticisms welcome.